Hi, everybody, and good morning, and welcome to Creating a Corner Design with BERNINA Q-matic. If you have questions for our presenter today, there is a questions box or a chat box on your right-hand control panel. Type your questions in, and we'll have a short question and answer session at the very end. We also have two handouts today in the Handouts tab, so make sure you download those to either follow along or take notes. If you don't download the handouts now, not to worry, they will be available on bernina.com and the video as well next week. If you're viewing on an Apple product, your screen might look a little different. You either have to swipe left or right to view the presentation or the presenter. Also, your questions icon at the bottom, go ahead and click that to ask questions. And the three dots at the bottom is where you will find your handouts. If you have any technical issues during the webinar, the best thing to do is exit the webinar, close out your browser, and then rejoin. Make sure you have all other applications closed during this time, as the presentation will run the best. If you miss any part of the presentation, it is being recorded and it'll be available on YouTube and bernina.com next week. So now I'd like to welcome Denise Jones, and we will begin our presentation today. Hey, Denise.
Hi, thanks, Emily. I think she's going to give me the screen. There we go. Okay, so I just want to say welcome. And Emily has a short poll we want to take really quickly so we can get an idea of who's in the audience. So go ahead, Emily.
The poll is open.
So plug your answers in, and then Emily will give me the results. How's it coming along, Emily?
We're at about 77% voted, so everybody go ahead and make your last selection and we can see what the results are.
All right, good deal.
Okay, I'm going to close the poll.
Okay.
And here are the results. So what percentage of your quilting projects have borders? We had 25% or less. That was said by 8% of our viewers. 8% of our viewers said 50%. 54% of our viewers said 75%. And 30% said 100%.
Wow, that's interesting, isn't it? Wow. So we are putting lots of borders on our quilt tops here when we use Q-matic. So you're going to find this very interesting and exciting. I hope that you'll be able to create a corner to match your border design just using Q-matic. So first we need to define what a border design is. Excuse me, I have a little frog in my throat this morning. A border design is something that starts and ends on the same plane or on the same grid line so that when it's connected, it matches up perfectly. Another thing about a border design is it's pretty much flat on the top and the bottom. So if it has a wave, it would more likely than not be classified as a pantograph design rather than a border design. So there are two kinds of border designs. One would be symmetrical, and if the border is symmetrical, it wouldn't matter if you look at it from left to right, from top to bottom, you would come up with the same results. So when working with a symmetrical border design, you would only have to create one corner because all the corners could be exactly the same. Now, if you're working with an asymmetrical or a border design that's not exactly reading the same from left to right or from top to bottom, but still starting and stopping on the same plane and being flat on the top and the bottom, you would have to create two corners, which would be a left corner and a right corner for your design. So I'm going to switch over to my Q-matic screen real quickly, and we're going to walk through how to create both types of borders when you get ready to use those designs. I'm going to start off with the symmetrical border, and I'm going to zoom in. Let's see, I'm going to turn off my webcam just so you can see the whole screen, okay? And I'm going to zoom in just a little bit so we can get a closer view of exactly what's happening here. Okay, so we know that our grid lines, our dark gray grid lines are 4 inches apart. So the way I have it zoomed in right now, they're 1 inch apart. But what I want to do is I want to kind of put this up in the corner. It doesn't have to be an exact, it doesn't have to be, you know, perfect. I just want to kind of move it over so that I know when I trim it that I'll get the least amount of jump lines. So the first thing we're going to do is resize it. I think 2 inches is fine for the border that I'm creating. And if yours was a different size, you would resize it at this point in time. So after you've resized it, you want to copy it. And I'm just going to use the copy icon. And you know, since we have a safe area set, the copy goes right to the needle because it defaults at the needle. So I'm just going to keep that one and just kind of put it over to the side. That's what I'm going to use to make my borders to connect my corners with. So I'm going to select the design. I'm going to open trim. I'm going to use this control on the screen, and we're only going to trim the selected design. Now we have the option to trim horizontally, vertically, or at an angle. And we don't use an angle very much to trim with, but this is the perfect opportunity to use it. When you use the angle to trim, you set the first point by clicking, and then that's the pivot point, and then the next point you click will create the angle. But I want this to be right on the grid line. I know that if I go from corner to corner to corner on those gray boxes, I'm going to get that 45-degree angle that I need to create my corner with. So I'm going to go up to settings, and I'm going to activate snap to grid. You see here it says it's off, so I'm going to click on it. And if I were to open it back up, it would say now it is on. So I'm going to leave that on. I've got angle selected. We know that the default is to trim the top and the left side. So I'm going to want to trim the bottom or the right side of this angle that I'm going to create. So I'm going to click invert. We also know that when we trim that it creates a stitching line between the two. Every line that you have cut with the trim function, it creates a stitching line to connect it to the next one. And I don't want that to happen, so I'm going to select jump. So I'm going to click on the grid, the dark gray grid line to get my first point. And see, I could click anywhere around to move that line because this is the first place I click is the pivot point. And to get that exact 45-degree angle, I'm going to use my second click on the opposite corner of that dark gray grid line on my gridded area. I'm going to preview. And as you can see, it's just cut it right in two, cut that corner off of it, but there's no stitching lines. So I like that. So I'm going to go ahead and confirm. After I've confirmed, I'm going to select it and I'm going to select copy. So I'm going to make an exact copy of this design, and here it is. I'm going to turn off snap to grid because I don't want things snapping to the grid as I move things around. So I'm just going to go to settings and turn off snap to grid. With the copy selected, I'm going to flip it so that it will be in the right orientation when I rotate it. I'm also going to reverse sew it. And I'm going to reverse sew it because we're going to stitch across this way and then down this way, okay? So with it selected, I'm going to rotate it 45 degrees twice counterclockwise. I'm going to select the first design. I'm going to open connect. When you click on connect, you notice you have several ways to connect these two designs or designs in general. You can group them, you can attach them, and you can link them. Well, if I were to group them, I would they would stay in the orientation they are, and that wouldn't be what I wanted. If I were to link them, they would stay exactly where they are, but from the first stitch of the second design to the last stitch of the first design, it would create a stitching line. So what I want to do is attach them, and what's going to happen is this design here that's blue, the copy, is physically going to move and attach itself to the end of the design that I trimmed. So I'm going to select attach, and when I click that design, it physically attaches itself, and here is your corner. Then I'm going to confirm. I'm going to zoom back out so we can see what's going on. So what you would do is at this point in time is you would take and copy this to make 4 of them. Then you would rotate them to the orientation needed to make the outside or the border design. Okay, so you've noticed, and it doesn't make a lot of difference with this symmetrical design, but with a design that is not symmetrical, it will make a difference as to which way you rotate them. So what I've done is I've made the start go around the corner to the stop, the start go around the corner to the stop, the start go around the corner to the stop, then the start go around to the corner to the stop. So there's an article on the We All Sew blog that talks about how to place these borders on your quilt top, but just to get you through what we need to do today, what we're going to do is create 4 of the side pieces that would be on our quilt, and these could be more of this design, or you could squish this design into the spot it needs to be in, but just to save time, we're going to rotate these, and then we're going to connect them in the order they need to be in, just so you can see that it's very easy to create this this border for your quilt. We want the start, the stop, the start, the stop, the start, the stop, and all the way around. So I'm going to select this first corner. I'm going to open connect again. I'm going to select attach. I'm going to click the side, the other corner, the side, the other corner, the side, the other corner, and the side. And when I confirm and I zoom out, oops, what happened here? I must have had something turned the wrong way. So with it selected, I'm going to unconnect. So I'm going to move this over, and that is exactly what happened. It was turned over. See, I needed to flip it to make it come out right. So once again, we're going to do it one more time. I'm going to select a corner, open connect, attach, click all the way around. That looks much better, doesn't it? So if your quilt top was this size, 35 inches, you would have to unconnect these to sew them, and then you could advance your quilt, connect the next, or place the next ones and sew them out. This is all covered in the blog post that's on the We All Sew blog, okay? The next thing we're going to work with is the border that is not so symmetrical. And I don't know if you knew or not, but when you have a project open and you make lots and lots and lots of changes to it, or you add things and delete things and take things on and pull things off and resize and reshape and whatever, when you push the start button, that has to process all of that information that has gone on. So to save my computer from having to process so much information, I'm just going to go up to start and open a new project. I'm not going to save this because I already have part of it stitched out. And so as you can see, my safe area is still there, and I am ready to create my next project. So this is our design we're going to be working with today. And once again, you would resize this if you needed it to be resized to fit your border. This is the time to do it. Then you're going to make a copy of it. Now this copy will be used to create the opposite corner that will be needed. And this copy will be used to create the sides, whether you need one run of it, 2 or 3, or ever how many you need. So the first corner we're going to work with is here, and once again we're going to kind of place it on that grid because I'm trying really hard to get a nice 45-degree angle. I'm going to zoom in some once again so we can see, and we're going to go through exactly the same process. We're going to open the scissors. We're going to leave it, the trim feature. We're going to leave it on screen, selected design, and we are going to trim at an angle. We still need to invert, and we still want those jump stitches. So I'm going to click to set the first corner, and then like I said, you can click as many times as you want to, but I'm going to click there to set the other corner. Then I'm going to preview. I think that looks pretty good, and I'm going to confirm. I'm going to select that design. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to flip it. I'm going to rotate it. I'm going to reverse sew it. I'm going to select it. I'm going to click connect and attach that corner. Now we have our first corner created. Now we need to create our other corner because they will have to be on opposite sides. As you can see, the little waves in this, on the top side, they're going to the left. On the other side, on the right side, they're kind of going to the bottom. So they've reversed their direction. That's why we have to have two of them, okay? So once again, I'm going to place it here. It is selected. I have resized it already. I'm going to open trim. I'm going to leave it on the screen, selected design at an angle. But now this time we're going to be trimming the opposite direction. So I don't believe we need to invert. So I'm just going to click the jump stitch. I'm going to click on one angle, and you can see how the angle went at an opposite direction that I wanted it to, because that was the last angle that I used. And so I'm just going to click on where the grid crosses there. I'm going to preview, and I have my 45-degree angle. Then I'm going to copy it, and it should be, oh, I have to select it first, don't I? Copy it, bring it down. I'm going to flip it. Okay, so let's think about this for just a little bit. We still want it to sew around the quilt basically from left to right, or you could do right to left, but I already have this one corner going left to right. So this time I'm going to select the bottom design, and I'm going to reverse sew it. I'm going to rotate it. With it selected, I'm going to open connect and attach, and I'm going to attach it to that design that we trimmed. I'm going to confirm, and you can see there are two corners, but they're kind of different, but yet not enough to notice. You'll see the little wavy lines are going to the left. These are now going to the top, and these are going to the bottom. That's why we have to have two opposite corners, okay? So with one corner selected, I'm going to copy it. We're going to bring it down. We're going to rotate it around so that it's in the correct orientation. Okay. Then I'm going to select the other one, copy it, rotate it around so that it is in the correct orientation. And if our design was really small, we could leave it just like this, but I'm going to bring this one over, and you can see how the little, it looks like hair waves are going all to the left. Then I'm going to copy this one. I'm going to bring it down to the bottom. I'm going to rotate it. And here you can see all the little waves are going to the right. So if I go back up to the top and click a corner, select connect and attach, and then we can attach all of these, and you will notice that all of the little design elements are consistent all the way around it. So it's that easy to create the corners from a border design. But what you need to know is, let me turn my camera back on. And I'm going to switch to my webcam that's on my fabric over here. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that you can see the webcam really big. Is that correct, Emily?
Yep, you're good, Denise.
Okay, so you can see here, I have a little arrow. This is where the design was trimmed, and you can see here are the jump stitches. Sure, you could take this corner into Art and Stitch and you could get rid of those stitches, those jump stitches there, but there's only 4 corners on a quilt, right? So all you have to do is go back, trim those off, and look how nice that looks. If we were using the other design, it does have a lot to do with where you trimmed it at. See, this one has a very little short stitch here, jump stitch here, and a short jump stitch here. Then if you look at the other corner, it has a few more jump stitches. So there's 1, 2, 3, and 4. And you could work with it until you got as few jump stitches as possible, you know, on your corner design. So it's that easy to create your corners. And let me turn back on the right webcam. So Emily, we are ready. Did I change it? No, maybe I didn't.
You can turn off your quilt camera if you want to show your face again, or are we ready for questions?
We are ready for questions.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so let's have it. It's just that easy. Yes, it could be done in Art and Stitch, and Art and Stitch has a very wonderful way of educating you, but it's so simple in Q-matic. Why not just do it as you go, right?
Okay, so I just wanted to confirm that you had mentioned a blog post earlier, and that's the one on We All Sew about corners and borders?
Yes, it is. And let
Okay.
me change my screen. Let me remember how to do that. Is it here? No. Oh, sharing. That's it, right? Screen. Okay, so this is the mastery workbook, and then here is the We Also corners and borders on Q-matic. So that's how to place them and how to stitch them out.
Okay. Let's see here. Sue had a question about, do you have to worry about the isolated sections in the corner created by the trim? Specifically, or maybe you mentioned that. Can you go over that again?
The corner, when you trim out the corner, I'm guessing they're talking about where there might be a bigger space than other. You could consider that a design element, or you could trim that corner, decide where you want to place that corner to trim it so that you had a better filled in area. Yeah, so you're completely in charge as to what you want that corner to look like. But you do need to trim at a 45-degree angle because we are assuming that all of our quilts are square.
That's right. Okay, Sheila has a question. What happens if your border pieces do not fit the quilt image? Do you resize?
If your border pieces do not fill the image. Okay, so in the instructions that are there for you to download, I use some examples. On the first one, I say your border is 2.5 inches. You might want to make your design 2 inches as a good starting place. And then as you go, you could resize it if your border is not necessarily consistent, okay? Now, if you have a wider border at the top and the bottom than you have on the sides, that's a whole different story. We are working with equal width borders here, okay?
Okay. Can you go over when you hit the reverse sew button for Linda?
Yes. Okay. I'm going to switch my screen back to my Q-matic screen. Okay. So let me just undo a few things here. So you know we have like 9 undos, which is not enough to undo back to where I need to be. But let's just go here. We will take this one and we will unconnect it. Okay, so now it's 2 pieces. It has to stitch from one to the other, okay? So whichever one it's ending with, the other one has to be starting with it. So you could hit the reverse sew at any time, but it has to be hit. You have to reverse sew them so they connect correctly. So if this was reverse sewn this way and I went here to connect, when I click this one, see, it does something crazy. You'll know it instantly if you haven't reverse sewn it. Okay.
Okay, let's see. The next question is Susan is very excited. She's like, thank you. I didn't know one could attach and avoid the stitch line using the jump stitch option. So very
Yeah.
fun.
Good.
And
Good.
will the design stitch out in sections in the safe area?
Yes, yes, and that's what the blog post is about. It talks about how uh, with with these sections that go in between the corner, how you want to make sure that you copy and connect them rather than use the E to E plus. If you use the E to E plus, you can't ungroup it. See, it's grouped and you can't unconnect it. See, I'm clicking on unconnect and it doesn't work that way. So you would have to copy this, bring it down, go in, whoops, wrong one selected. I have this little box on my screen that's always in my way. Okay, and when you connect, see, it connects right to it. But when you unconnect it, which is the bottom half of the connect, it doesn't move, it just unconnects. So now you have a start point here and a start point here. So therefore, you can make any adjustments down the sides or across if it happens to not be exactly straight across. But the blog post goes into much more detail, and I hope to have another online class about this in 2022. And hopefully we'll get some more classes at the Creative Center on the borders and corners, how to place them, not creating them using designs, but on how to place them and stitch them.
Okay, and the next question is, what do you do if you get to the bottom of your quilt and the border is not exactly falling where it should be in your border?
Okay, that's a very good question. Okay, so let's just take, we'll just pretend like this. Let's move some of this stuff out of the way. We're going to pretend like this is the bottom of our quilt. Let's see, I need to reverse sew that one, and I need to reverse sew that one. Okay, so we're coming down and we will have these all attached. My brain is just not working right today. Oh, that's what I have to do. I have to flip them because I was at the top a while ago. Okay. Okay. Now I have everything lined up, I think. Okay. So these are coming across the bottom and we're going to attach them so that we know they're nice and straight. Okay. But there's a little bobble right in here somewhere. Okay. So we're going to unconnect them. Say the bobble is right in here. So I'm going to select that one. I'm going to rotate it just a little bit. See it moving? Okay,
Okay.
see the gap right there? Then I'm going to take this one, I'm going to reverse sew it. And then I'm going to go here and I'm going to make it rise up maybe to meet that one. Oh, I went the wrong way. So you just rotate it around till it meets it. And I don't know if you can see that right there, but now it's there. Okay. let me zoom in just a little bit here. Okay, so this one's going up a little bit. See, there's a grid line there, and see how much bigger it is here. This one is brought up to meet it, so this is where your wobble is. Then to get this one to come back and be exactly where it needs to be here, you would select it. You would uncheck maintain ratio. You will turn that handle green, and then you will just bring it right back to there, confirm, and then you would rotate it up. Whoops, I made it too short. Rotate it up, go back to resize, and check maintain ratio. Green box. There you go. If you were to have one little, it looks like one little stitch right there is missing. See that? That little stitch right there. If you wanted to, you could just link these two. And see, now there's no gap. Okay?
So good to know that if you get to the bottom and it doesn't line up, definitely fixable and it will turn out beautiful.
Remember, what's up? The quilt always tells you the truth, and the crosshairs of your needle can show you on your screen what's actually going on the quilt. So always believe what the quilt is telling you. The screen can look perfect, but if the quilt is not perfect, then it won't stitch out perfect. Sorry.
The next question is, when you indicate jump stitch, does the machine do securing stitches? I've noticed you clipped the jump stitches on the first border corner, so I'm assuming it does secure, or you would not have done that.
Correct, it does.
Okay.
At any time that line is cut, unless you tell it not to tie on and tie off, it will do that for you. And I apologize, I meant to have a sample that would show that, but it's hanging in the hall. Sorry. But yes, you can definitely see it. In fact, I believe the handout that I gave you, there's a picture on the last page, and you can actually see the tie on and tie off stitches on it. Okay.
And then another question is there a way to determine which pivot point to use when pivoting?
The first point you click is always the pivot point. Okay. The second point sets the angle. So yeah, the first point's always the pivot point. You don't get to swap it back and forth. Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Shirley had a question. Couldn't you copy those designs and do what you did to the first one? I think this is at the very beginning. The corners are inverted on the top.
The corners
might need some clarification. Says, why couldn't you just copy those and do what you did to the first one? The corners are inverted on the top.
Oh, because remember on the top of this, see how the little things go opposite directions once you go around the corner? And if it's symmetrical, yes, you only have to create one corner. Or if you wanted to trim the other end of the design to make the corner, maybe that's what she's talking about. If you trim the other end of the design, you wouldn't have to invert to the trim part. Maybe that's what she's talking about. But you, with a design that's not symmetrical, you have to create two corners because the flow of the design is different once you get around the corner.
Sure.
I hope that made sense.
Sure. If not, Shirley, just let us know if you need any clarification. Just a reminder, everybody, go ahead and download those handouts now. And if you have any more questions for Denise, we have a couple more minutes. And I want to thank you, Denise, for such an awesome topic today. I know everybody is always wanting to know how to sew those borders and not having to turn their quilts on their frame. So this is a wonderful way, and most definitely hope to have the Borders and Corners class again next year at the Creative Center. It's one of my favorite classes. Denise and I present that together for you. And if there's no other questions, have a great day, everybody, and thanks again. Bye.
Thank you. See you later. Bye.